ESI Act studied under 5 heads: object and scope, contributions, benefits, benefit terms, complaint and recovery. Covering under object and scope: factory, ESI fund, employee and employer. The object of ESI Act is to provide benefits to employees in case of sickness, maternity and employment injury. The Act applies to all factories other than seasonal factories. Factory means any premises including precincts thereof, where 10 or more persons employed on any day during the last 12 months and in any part of which a manufacturing process is carried on. The Act continues to apply if the number of employees falls below the limit specified. Seasonal factory, which is outside the scope of ESI, is one which is engaged in one or more of manufacturing processes, namely cotton ginning, cotton or jute processing, decortification of groundnuts, manufacture of coffee, rubber, sugar or tea, or any manufacturing process connected with any one of the above, and it also includes a factory which is engaged for a period not exceeding 7 months in a year. All contributions received under the Act are deposited into the ESI fund. The ESI fund is administered by the ESI Corporation. ESI fund can accept grants, donations, gifts, etc. from government, local authority, individual or body corporate. ESI fund takes care of the benefits and medical treatment of insured persons and their families. It also covers the fees and allowances of members of the corporation, committees and councils. The fund takes care of employee related expenses of the setup, and it is the main source for establishment and maintenance of hospitals, dispensaries and other institutions. And it also takes care of contributions towards cost of medical treatment and other purposes as authorized from time to time. An upper ceiling of rupees 21,000 per month is fixed as wage for coverage under ESI. If the wages exceeds 21,000 after the commencement of contribution period, the employee shall continue to be covered till the end of the contribution period, and then he will be excluded. The concept wages means remuneration payable to an employee as per contract. It includes even payment for leave, strike period, lockout or layoff, but it doesn't include any PF contribution by employer, traveling concession or traveling allowance, and any reimbursements of expenses and gratuity payable on discharge. Briefly, it includes basic, DA, CCA, HRA, incentive and any allowances. An insured person is an employee. He contributes to the ESI fund, and for that reason he becomes eligible for benefits provided by the Act. Employee is a person employed in connection with the work of a factory or establishment. He may be employed by the principal employer directly, or he may be hired through an immediate employer, but he works on the premises or elsewhere under the supervision of the principal employer or his agent. And it also includes one whose services are let on hire to principal employer on a contract of service by the immediate employer. In relation to a factory, principal employer means the owner, occupier or his agent, a manager or managing director, or it includes legal representative of a deceased owner or occupier. As related to any other establishment, principal employer means the person who has the ultimate control over the affairs of the establishment. It includes a manager or a managing director. Immediate employer refers to a contractor who has undertaken on the premises of the principal employer certain works which is a part of the work of the factory or establishment, and he works under the supervision of the principal employer or his agent. Or an immediate employer may also provide people on hire at the service of the principal employer. Occupier is the person who has ultimate control over the affairs of the factory or establishment. It includes an employer, manager, executive manager, CEO, or any other person having ultimate control on the factory or establishment. As occupier, he is responsible for coverage of ESI for all people who are a part of the factory of establishment, directly employed or indirectly employed, as held in case of Royal Talkies Hyderabad, where even the employees of canteen and cycle stand run by external contractors and operators was held to be responsibility of the owner of the cinema talkies. An overview of what is contribution, what is injury, and what are different types of disablement. ESI contribution has two components: employer's contribution and employee's contribution. The principal employer is responsible to collect from the employee and remit it together with his contribution, and the contribution from the employer is 3.25% of workers' wages, while the contribution of an employee is 0.75%. For payment of ESI contribution, the principal employer has got time up to 21 days after the end of the calendar month in which the wage falls due. An employment injury is a personal injury caused by accident or an occupational disease, but the requirement is it should arise out of and in the course of his employment. It might occur or be contracted anywhere within India or outside India. Temporary disablement is a condition resulting from an employment injury which requires medical treatment, and as a result, the employee is rendered temporarily incapable of doing what he was doing prior to the injury. Permanent partial disablement is a disablement of a permanent nature. It reduces the earning capacity of an employee in every employment which he was capable of undertaking prior to the accident resulting in the disablement. It is listed in Part 2 of Schedule 2 among injuries deemed to result in permanent partial disablement. Permanent total disablement is a disablement of a permanent nature which incapacitates an employee for all work which he was capable of performing at the time of the accident. It is listed in Part 1 of Schedule 2. Loss of both hands, loss of a hand and a foot, absolute deafness are examples of permanent total disablement. Even injuries listed in Part 2 can result in permanent total disablement when the combination of injuries aggregate to a loss of 100% or more. Various types of benefits covered under Section 46 like sickness, maternity, disablement, dependents benefit, etc. Sickness benefit from ESI as a periodical payment is made available to the insured person based on a certificate from a duly appointed medical practitioner. Maternity benefit in the form of periodical payments to an insured woman based on certification to that effect in respect of confinement or miscarriage, or sickness arising out of pregnancy, confinement, premature birth of child, or miscarriage. ESI disablement benefit available to an insured person as a periodical payment towards disablement resulting from an employment injury, duly certified for eligibility. Medical attendance and medical treatment of insured persons is a part of medical benefit. Even the family members of the insured persons are covered provided there is an approval from the appropriate government. The definition of family for medical benefit is quite comprehensive. It includes the relatives of an insured person like spouse, unmarried daughter, dependent parents, a child who is infirm and is wholly dependent on the insured person, a minor child till attains the age of 21 years, and where parents of the insured are not alive, a wholly dependent minor brother or sister also forms a part of family. ESI makes available dependents benefit as a periodical payment to dependents on the death of an insured person as a result of an employment injury. Dependent includes relatives of a deceased insured person comprising widow, minor son, an unmarried daughter, a parent or a widowed mother, a son or daughter who is infirm, a minor brother or an unmarried sister if no parent is alive, or a widowed daughter-in-law, and a minor child of a predeceased son or daughter or a paternal grandparent if no parent is alive. On the death of an insured person, payment is made towards expenditure on the funeral, and it is normally paid to the eldest surviving member of the family of the insured person who has died, or to one who has actually incurred the funeral expenses. Certain benefit terms pertaining to hospital treatment, permanent disablement, superannuation, and other regulations. Three types of treatment available to an insured person: as an outpatient, or by visits to the home of an insured person, or as an inpatient. The only condition is During the period, contributions are required to be payable and the insured person must be entitled to medical benefit as per regulations. In respect of an insured person who is under permanent disablement, the medical benefit will continue till such time he would have otherwise attained the age of superannuation. The only requirement is the payment of contribution must continue during the period. ESI medical benefit can also be available after superannuation, provided there is continued payment of contributions and the benefit is available to an insured person who has attained the age of superannuation and his spouse, and also to an insured person who retires under a voluntary retirement scheme and it is available to his spouse too. ESI insists that the insured person and his family shall avail medical treatment as provided by the corporation at the prescribed hospitals, dispensaries and clinics, and ESI corporation doesn't entertain any reimbursement of expenses. ESI prohibits clubbing of benefits. An insured person cannot receive for the same period both sickness benefit and maternity benefit together, or sickness benefit and disablement benefit. Similarly, maternity benefit and disablement benefit. It is required that the insured person must make a choice between the available benefits and opt for only one of them. Any benefit under the Act is neither transferable nor assignable, and any cash benefit under the Act shall not be liable to be attached under a court order or sold in execution of any decree or order of the court. Any benefit received without lawful entitlement is required to be repaid, else it is liable to be recovered as an arrear of land revenue. When a person is entitled to ESI benefit, he is prohibited from taking any similar benefit admissible under any other enactment. Residual provisions on ESI court recovery, no wage reduction and no dismissal. ESI court is set up for each local area by the state government. It deals with the scope, applicability, concepts, rates and other matters which are in dispute. It has powers of a civil court for enforcing attendance, production of documents and recording evidence. Order of such a court is enforceable as if it were a decree passed in a suit by a civil court. No appeal lies against the order of an ESI court except to High Court on substantial question of law, and the appeal can be submitted within 60 days. ESI contribution remaining unpaid can be recovered as an arrear of land revenue. An authorized officer can issue a certificate for the amount addressed to the recovery officer, and the recovery officer is authorized to recover the certified amount from the factory or establishment by attachment and sale of its movable or immovable property, or by appointing a receiver for the management of the properties of ESI is a preferential creditor, as in the distribution of assets of a company being wound up, dues to the corporation are to be paid in priority to all other debts. The Act prohibits an employer using the liability for contributions payable under the Act as the ground for reducing the wages of an employee, and also from discontinuing or reducing benefits payable under the conditions of service. The Act prohibits any dismissal or punishment to an insured person during the period the employee is in receipt of sickness benefit, maternity benefit or disablement benefit, or is under medical treatment for sickness, or is absent for work as a result of illness which is duly certified. Object and scope, contributions, benefits under section 46, terms of benefit and residuary provisions. Progress review of ESI Act. ESI Act is a social security legislation. It covers all units which fall under the Factories Act and Shops and Establishment Act, and it is one of the pioneering legislations in the interest of employees. The Act covers people who are employees drawing wages up to and including 21,000, and they are registered under the ESI Act. Factory, for the sake of ESI Act, is premises where 10 or more persons are employed during the preceding 12 months. ESI Act does not cover a seasonal factory. What is seasonal factory? Is one which is engaged for a period not exceeding 7 months in any year. Once it operates more than 7 months in any year, it ceases to be a seasonal factory. But if its operation is up to 7 months or less than 7 months, it becomes a seasonal factory and it is outside the scope of ESI Act. The change in the contribution of employer and employee may please be noted. Effective 1st July 2019, the contribution is 3.25% from the employer and 0.75% is employees. It is a major reduction in the contribution in the life of the ESI Act. We have said monthly wages should not exceed 21,000. Wages does not include gratuity, but it includes all remuneration payable to the employee if he fulfills the terms of employment. The due date for payment of ESI contribution is within 21 days of the previous month for which the contribution falls due. The previous month is called the wage period. Wages includes all payments under the contract, but it does not include traveling allowance. ESI Act does not apply to members of naval, military or air force for obvious reasons. ESI Act covers only employees. Partners of a business are not considered employees. Where the persons are employed through contractors, legal representative of a contractor is not the principal employer. Principal employer is the one who owns and operates the factory or who is the occupier of the factory. ESI Act talks of giving facilities when a person is affected by disablement. It talks of two types of permanent disablement: permanent partial disablement and permanent total disablement. The Act talks of giving the benefit during confinement. Confinement is interpreted in two ways. One which results in birth of a living child, or a labor after 26 weeks of pregnancy which results in the issue of child alive or dead, and both are considered as confinement to entitle a person for confinement benefits under the Act. There is a dependent's benefit which is paid at 90% of wages in the form of monthly payment to the dependents. Whatever benefit a person gets under ESI Act, they cannot be assigned to a third party. There are certain benefits which can be claimed both under Workmen's Compensation Act and also ESI Act. ESI Act makes it clear that there can be no double benefit. It is either or. Either you take it under ESI Act or under Workmen's Compensation Act, not under both. There is an allowance called funeral expense allowance which will be paid to the eldest surviving member of the family of the deceased. And if an employer fails to make payment of ESI contribution, the amount can be recovered under the Act as if it were an arrear of land revenue. Wherever there is a default, although it can be recovered as a land revenue, it can also involve attachment of bank account of the defaulter for recovery of dues. There are three authorities under the ESI Act: ESI Court, Tribunal and Medical Board, and because of these institutions which are established for fast tracking the cases, Civil Court has no jurisdiction on any dispute or disputes on liabilities which are decided by any of these three authorities. However, on any orders of the ESI Court, appeal shall lie to the High Court, but it has to be filed within 60 days of the date of order of the ESI Court. And the corporation, that is ESI Corporation, can establish and maintain state hospitals and dispensaries with the approval of state government. This is for the establishment of ESI hospitals. ESI Corporation is a body corporate and it can be superseded by the central government because it is set up by them. ESI has got the corpus in the form of ESI fund. It gets contribution into it. It also gets grants and also donations. A collection of these three form the fund base of the ESI fund, which is used for managing ESI activities.